Can you just count and make sure that there are 6 of us still in here, because we are only have quorum for an extra elected member for our meeting today. So with Councillor Foyt online, we've got quorum right now. So if any of you were to leave, then we can't make effective decisions. So with that, I'll open this up with our council prayer. Tēnā tātou. Ka tuku mātou kia kaha mai ngā mātai kua whiriwhiri kia mō kauniro e ko tika ki te mahi me te ngākau awaha, me te haka mahi i ngā pūkinga, me te mātauranga i roto i ngā wānanga, me ngā hakataunga ki ka tūri ai te tahi hapuri mata tikana, e tūko tahi ana ka mintu ka piki ana o te oranga o tō tātou rohe, ka kataua no i ngā take o te rohe I runga I te tika me te pono. We ask that through our committee's discussions and decisions, the representatives we have elected may govern the Far North District Council with imagination, skill and wisdom to achieve a fairer and more united community that enhances the well-being of our district and solves the district's problems efficiently and effectively. Amen. I will move that we accept apologies from Councillor Maddie Radich, Councillor Penito Pleskovich, Councillor Tamati Rakina and Councillor Ange. Today's committee meeting. Thank you for that. All those in favour? Aye. Those opposed or abstentions? And that is carried. Welcome to our Manukiri and chambers today. Great to have you in here. Oh, thank you for turning the lights on for us. That's much better. Today in my maramataka Māori is Ohua. So we are just on the cusp of the full moon phase when everybody has heaps of energy and some people have too much energy and go a little bit, but let's hope that helps us with our meeting today. Also, actually, if I'm being honest, because I only learned about this morning, but and I'm a little bit angry about it, you know, but I'll still say thank you. Today is Ellie's last committee meeting for Te Koukou. She is having a final week with council next week before she returns to work for corrections to continue to do amazing mahi for us here in the Far North. But can I just say that Ellie, and I'll say it now, oh, what about the Gigi's game? Ellie has been my favourite Gigi governance spirit looking after us for this committee. No, for this committee. Because she has to deal with the, we all know that for this committee, for this committee, transport, those are our biggest, the biggest issues that I hear from Far Northerners about daily, and Ali deals with that on the daily through any correspondence or through setting up all of this. And your professionalism, the way you go about things, is to be highly commended. I'm seeing that into your correspondence, and your work is always on point. So on behalf of our Te Koukou Transport Committee, thank you very much for all of your work as one of our governance team, and we wish you directions. And the doors at our council will always be open to you. Right. Thank you very much. So we could give her a with that, we will get into our deputations. Our first deputation is from Fire Chase Dalton for the Poheringa Tai Twin Coast Cycle. And I think that you know how this all rolls as a former councillor, so we're happy to pass it over to you.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity. I really have just come to speak to the information document that was circulated yesterday to you as the elected members. I understand that we are part of the operations, as in the trust is set up by the council to manage the maintenance and promote the cycle trail. But because we feel structures haven't been confirmed, I thought that I would just come jump the gate and provide this information prior for the elected members before you debate your long-term plan. So I would just like to say, are there any questions?
Tracy, do you expect to see a rise in the number of users? I think it was, there's 67,000 users. And we haven't got the 2024 count. Do you expect that that's higher?
Yes, actually, it has increased. We tend to produce year to date, and the year of 2023, the impact of Cyclone Gabriel impacted on that number. Already we're up to 80 something, early 80s. And the number has been high through January and February, but I don't have March yet. So I've been quite confident to see that in 2 months we had 28,000. That was January and February.
And with, sorry, one more question on the Koukou to Taumata realignment. Do you see the benefits of that section of the trail just for the users, say in the Bay of Islands ward, or other parts of the district?
Koukou to Taumata is a hugely important section to the cycle trail. It is a connectivity alternative transport corridor for the community, and as well it's extremely it's like the funnel for any tourist in the Bay of Islands who decides not to be out venturing out on the water, to be spontaneous and take a half day or day activity on a bicycle and come through to Koukou. That's definitely indicated. And cyclists come further, if you mean in a day trip, from Koukou to Koukou, that's doable. I believe in enjoying what you're doing, and for some people that's meeting a time target, and for some people it's just enjoying being out there or sharing that time with friends and whānau.
Councillor Research. Thanks. Basically, just following on from what Deputy Mayor said, I just want to point out too that I'm on the local way trust there, but really so that it's clear to everybody, I just wanted just some questions to that open all the way through to Koukou actually route. I'm looking at your numbers and it's pleasing to see that they have come up. But what were they prior to, in their heyday, how many were on that Oprah?
Oh, that's a good question.
And secondly, what impact was it having on the local businesses that you're aware of? Because I think it's important to just see how important that section is to be open. Thanks.
So a key strategy with the Great Rides is to trigger regional economic development, and often that transpires into small owner-operated businesses. At Koukou, we had a very successful bike shuttle hire operation, which did close in 2022 because there just wasn't the turnover of people coming through. And the year prior to COVID isn't listed here, Kelly. So in 2019, we had 140,000 people clocked on the cycle trail, and we just were ready to fly. We thought this was the beginning of a great thing for the communities owning, operating their own businesses. I couldn't tell you that figure right now because I haven't got it on hand, but I will tell you now that the Koukou to Taumata was the highest number of people using it any day of the week, any week of the year. Some days in the weekend, I do recall there were up to 900 trail users. And I say users because some are walkers and some are cyclists. We can differentiate, but we always total them because they're a trail user.
Oh, second.
Oh, yes.
Just a supplementary question to that, Mr. Mayor. And we live with the rising cost of stroke. Just what can council do that best actually enable you, given the challenges you're facing, to go forward?
Speaking on behalf of the trust, and I'll just take a moment and introduce two of the trustees that have come to Tautoko. Dalton Davis is from the Ortides Taumarere section, and Richard Green is from Taumarere Taupo. Walton's one of the founding trustees, so he's been with the trust since 2017, and Richard came on probably 3 years ago.
24. What do you think?
Yeah. So what could the council do to support the trust? Acknowledge that we are the community connection. We are the face of the project of the Great Ride, but it's actually a council-owned asset. So what I'd like is just that working a capacity within council to have a strong team member to assist us with internally.
Thank you. I've got a question or two before we pass over to Councillor Foy. Now, we put back into our long-term plan consultation funding for the to Taumarere section. I guess my question is around the Twin Coast Cycle Trail is one of New Zealand's great rides. It spans from coast to coast. We are facing, along with every other council in this country and the government as well, the huge rise in costs and trying to claw back costs to ensure that for us in council, our rates are low when we go out. How do you think as council, because this is our asset, we could better help promote the Twin Coast Cycle Trail for far northerners themselves? Because I think preempting potentially what Councillor Foy will bring to the table, our Twin Coast Cycle Trail does come at huge cost, but also huge reward. And we saw that, we see that on the daily, we see the numbers hopefully getting back and surpassing pre-COVID-19 numbers as well. But how can we better sell this huge community asset that we have to not only the people of the Mid-North who get to see and feel and benefit from it, but also the people of the far north who are a little bit further removed and look jealously this side of the Mangamuka Ranges at the fact that we've got this 89-kilometre cycle trail, and in Koukou they actually don't have any. How do you think we in council can better support the trust in promoting our own asset to far northerners rather than to the visitors who also
Sure. Okay, so we've made a big decision this year going forward to increase the time or the hours of the staff member who will be marketing. And we're thrilled to be employing from the end of May a full-time marketing events manager. She has great skills in this area. She's currently at Te Wānanga o Arangi, and she held the key relationship as the major sponsor for the ASB Pacifica Festival. So she totally gets how to engage with people from a community such as ours. And I'm including Te Huku in that community because events that engage the people of the community are key to us, not only sharing the opportunities to enjoy something so positive as getting out and riding together, but when we opened our first section, we had riders coming from Kaitaia, you know, opening day. There were over 800 people and there was a busload of people from Kaitaia. So I do believe, and I should mention that our marketing person, Whakapapa's back here through Mutikiore and Nafa, so she really does want to reach out and develop Māori kaupapa events, which is at present all we do operate and host on the cycle trail. We have 3 at the moment, and she's going to grow it because that's what we all want. That's it.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's great to hear. Councillor Foy.
Thank you, Me Moko. Kia ora koutou, and kia ora Tracy. Thank you for your presentation. I'm not sure, can you hear me okay, or am I speaking too loud? Just testing the sound online.
No, you're coming through very nicely there, Councillor Foy.
Excellent. So just 3 questions, and first and foremost, just a statement about how great it is, this kaupapa and this asset that that the southern portion of the district benefits from. And you're doing a great job, and it's great to hear about events there. Just some feedback as well before I ask my questions, that the people in Koukou, it's 2 hours away to the cycle trail, and it's paid out of the same bucket of money as roading. And feedback from up here is that we don't feel that it's benefiting us up here, and either we have cycle trails in our area, or in terms of it being paid out of the same bucket of money as roading, we have roading across the district, but in this case we don't have cycle trails across the district. So we do feel like we're missing out. Just some feedback for you there, and that what would make it fair is actually to have cycle trails in the far north. And so we have voiced that concern, but we haven't seen any action about that. So I'll go into my questions, and thank you for your time. In terms of the questions, we get 72% from roading as a subsidy from central government. What money, if any, is being provided from central government as a subsidy if we put in our money to essentially double or, increase the outcomes that we'll get for us putting in our money into this infrastructure, is one question. A second question, security of tenure. Do we have security of tenure of the proposed Taumarere route before we apply for our resource consent? So we can't apply for something if we don't have security of tenure, ownership or an easement. And thirdly, in terms of the ongoing operations and maintenance, with this being paid out of the same transport fund as roading, how much is this costing each ratepayer across the district out of the general rate? Those are the 3 questions. Thank you.
I think the first question was around subsidies. We get roading subsidies. Do we get subsidies for the Twin Coast Cycle Trail as well?
Thank you, Councillor Foy. The first question, central government co-fund us through Minister of Tourism, and under the umbrella of Great Rides, we do receive co-funding towards currently OPEX of the trust and 100% reinstatement of any damage created by weather or vandalism. Starting from July, they're contributing a significant amount, I'll say $1,000 per kilometre of the cycle trail. This is in a recognition after 10 years of operating as the Great Rides, that to maintain the resilience of the 23 Great Rides, they do need to contribute not only to OPEX, but to the maintenance of the cycle trails. Don't know what the percentage is, because normally that's managed internally, and we receive a budget annually to maintain the cycle trail. And if we go on to the current and up to now figures of our maintenance budget, it is 300,000. That includes the weeding and waterways and any repairs that are minor. and resurfacing on a renewal program. The contractors we use are all locally procured contractors. We are fortunate that we're small enough that we can operate in that manner of nice to have, rather than just using the big, larger contractors that the roading team would use on the public roads. Regarding tenure, currently we have a temporary legal lease agreement with the current leaseholders of that Kiwi Rail corridor. Part of the resource consent plan, Councillor Foy, to present to Kiwi Rail the design and the concepts of how we will provide a safe public cycleway alongside the operating train. The requests we've made, and we've completed stage 1 with Kiwi Rail, in that they accept the proposal in principle. Once the design and costings is presented to them in stage 2, which is happening this month, next month. I'll say that because I'm not actually responsible for that design group. That is a project managed on behalf of the council. And the request to Kiwi Rail is that we have 30-year plus 30-year plus 30-year. The third question.
Third question was, and this might not be a question you can actually answer, but it was something around the ongoing operations and management and how much it's costing each ratepayer on the general rate.
No. Right.
What I'm hearing is this is a significant asset that we as a council own, and I think it would be quite appropriate for our own staff in-house to work with you at the trust to prepare a suitable briefing for us so that we can get a better idea of what those cost breakdowns. We'll require that information when we come to deliberations, but in the meantime, I suggest before we jump to Councillor Research for the last question, that you very much so engage all of the key stakeholders, business people who are involved in identifying. We have to submit to our long-term so that we can hear from them what council's investment in this asset means for. I think Councillor Research.
Thanks. I think that's a great idea.
Sorry, Mayor Moko. Just to clarify my question about the capital costs that wasn't answered, only the OPEX cost was answered for subsidy. Thank you.
I can give you the answer to that. In fact, it's on the document that Trace sent out. It's on page 3. And if you look at the build and development trail, you'll see a graph showing of the over 10 million spent there, facility. The graph shows contributions from the bottom, Farmer Fishery Council, under 4 million, NB, which is the red area. So that then takes it up to over 8, and NZTA, which is 719,000, not a lot, and NRC, which then tops it off. So you'll see out of that, when you said the roading budget, it's actually not quite correct.
It's retrospective. That budget is retrospective. It's not going forward.
Yeah, but this is the construction that's been there today. That's where the money came from, and so you can see that in terms of the roading budget, it's not as I said before, that it's actually not a alternate, cycling multimodal strategy. This is different, and as Trace has pointed out, when it comes to the maintenance, where Wellington actually covers it as part of the Great Ride. So
what I might ask is, because we have gone over time, as Ellie, as one of your last duties for our Building Committee, Ellie, if you could formally request a briefing to come through to this committee to respond to all of these questions that have come across, to give us a better understanding of the full Twin Coast Cycle Trail, but especially so the Taumari section, and our own staff would please work with Te Whau Herenga Tai Twin Coast Cycling Trail Trust to ensure that it's not just the in-house council here are all the numbers, but captures the full benefits of the cycling.
Fantastic.
Ngā mihi nui, thank you very much for your dedication.
Thank you for your time.
Tēnā koutou. Our second deputation is from Rolf, how do I pronounce your surname properly? Walla, representing Vision Kirikiri regarding item 6.2, transport choices. Didn't know. Great to have you here in chambers today, Rolf, and yourself as well, Inga. Happy to pass the time over to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And on the side, thank you very much also for your good decision recently in council to delay and hopefully avoid the fluoridation of our waters. So just one point aside, and besides, I'm here basically for cycling and walking, so similar to the Twin Coast Cycle Trail, which I think, in agreement with you, it's a fantastic asset, and it could be used more, and it will be more beneficial to even the people in Kaitaia and further up north if we had cycling opportunities everywhere. The towns should enhance their infrastructure with more cycling. And then if we have enthusiastic cyclists also in the north, the cycle track is not only for tourists. We have local users as well. I have used it myself and it's fantastic. So we can only support that very strongly. However, I read in the report for this meeting that in the monthly report that the Kirikiri primary and high schools safety project is on hold. So obviously that's a worry. And it involves walking and cycling besides all those cars that are coming to bring the kids to school. However, we were very excited. That is, I'm talking about Vision Kirikiri now, as well as Carbon Neutral Trust. We were very excited about the transport choices for Kirikiri project, which was to be funded by CERF, the Climate Emissions Reduction Fund, expecting $3 million for that from central government until the transport minister shockingly cancelled just a few days before we were going to start. Maybe that was no wonder because the fund includes the word climate. And I guess the new government is not really interested so much in that. The project, the transport choices for Kirikiri is an excellent project, and it was based on extensive consultation with high public support. And obviously the expectation of the public is respectively very high. And so therefore the disappointment is now we understand that there's a new report commissioned by NCC. We had expected that in order to get funding from a new funding possibility from the central government, the existing project would be scaled down somewhat to make it cheaper and more affordable. But I was really quite surprised to see that the NEC report, which is another consulting company rather than the previous one, reduced this whole program in geographical scope. And it deletes the connecting footpaths and the important roundabouts on both sides of Honeyhickey Road, where all the schools are, and then adds some more safety features like raised pedestrian crossings for a total of mind-boggling $5.3 million. So if we can't afford the 3 million from this very good project, it's quite unlikely that we will be getting 5.3 million for a scaled down version. And Court mentioned to me that this is a NCC desktop project, so people haven't really been to Kerikeri to see what is necessary. But at least it wasn't to be paid by ratepayers because there was still some funding for consultation left over in the SURF funding. The 5.3 million I noticed includes 0.7 million for preliminary and general, 500,000 for design and management surveillance and quality assurance, as well as a contingency of 25% for almost 1 million. So I think we can all assume that these 5.3 million are vastly exaggerated. However, the report by NCC provides some valuable additional details, shows these pictures, and the narrow, uneven footpaths, which are unsafe, unusual, mobility scooters, and even uneven exits to the street from businesses and driveways. It shows the required linkages between schools, retirement villages, new build, and it recommends footpaths of a width of 1.8 to 2.5 meters, which is really very massive. And I personally cannot really imagine where we would put those 2.5 meters. But it would be fantastic to have that. 2 mobility scooters and cyclists and pedestrians could possibly use them jointly, so that cycling does not have to happen on the roads anymore, which is very unsafe, especially relatively narrow. Separating pedestrian and cycling is ideal and would be much safer than having children biking on the roads. A possibility might be that the wider footpaths could be built on the road reserve, so that we would intrude on the traffic lanes. Rebuilding the footpaths, as suggested there, would also provide a much safer surface and reduce the risk of tripping. So I understand Council is now applying under the 2024-2034 government policy statement on transport from central government. And we obviously hope that this will be successful. However, we would strongly propose to add there the roundabout that was already mentioned in the previous report at the southern side of Honeyacre Road, because it is really dangerous. Rod Brown, our long-term committee member of Vision Kerikeri, says the friends of our Aurora stream, which Vision Kerikeri supports and right building the track. The volunteers working there, often working in that area by the FNDC pump station for wet water, and we witness that the form of red running by cars trying to get out of Honeyacre Road at 8:30 in the morning, who wish to turn right into Cobham Road, but are forced to turn left and red run through the pump station. This is the time of the day when children or their parents are trying to get to and from Honeyacre and its schools. Children, for example, who live in the Campbell Road plain locality cannot safely cross this very busy Cobham Road. This is a serious safety issue in the morning and in the afternoon at the end of school. However, so as I said, I hope that this new application will be successful, will not be cancelled by the transport minister again. However, if the application is not successful, we strongly suggest to go ahead with some funding for a reduced project without further desktop projects by expensive consultants. We are proposing that the funding could be through a targeted rate. We are not talking about a huge amount. Maybe on a scaled down version, we might be looking at $2.5 million, maybe including the roundabout that was already included in the 3 million in the previous report. we would be looking at, say, 2 or maybe even 3 million. So divided that amount by the Kirikiri and surrounds ratepayers wouldn't really much of a targeted rate. We would propose to initially go for the easy and inexpensive tasks based on the public stakeholder consultation. Safety assessments are already done. Cut some of the non-essential items like the cycle path on Kirikiri Road from Honeheke Road to the Stone Store, which was in the previous report. That road is not very busy, and instead of, it was proposed to paint a green cycle path on that road to the Stone Store. I think it would be sufficient. I'm using that road myself, biking to town. It would be totally sufficient to just clean the road occasionally from the debris on that falls from the trees. And then cycling there would be really quite safe. So the previous report can be scaled down. There are some items that are really not necessary. Not so urgent is also the proposed roundabout northern end of Honeheke Road. I think we can live without that for quite a while. Only the southern part is important. And then thanks to Wayne Brown, I think I would have never imagined that I would ever.
I'm gonna text them right now.
We are all very well aware that raised pedestrian crossings are very expensive to build and to maintain. And I don't think that we need any more raised pedestrian crossings. Pedestrian crossings, yes, but you paint them in bright yellow color on the road, and then they will be well visible rather than always humping up and down, humping up and down. After all, we are already in the 30-kilometer zone, so I don't see much of a danger there anyway. So instead of engaging further consultants, I suggest get the work done for safe and convenient communal mobility. And surely the spatial planning process for Kirikiri, which we will be engaged as well, will also be considered projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have time for a question or two if there are any. Cheryl.
Thanks, Rob, for coming and presenting to us. A couple of questions. One, you made reference to a targeted rate for Honeheke Road, and it could be paid for by the Kirikiri residents and surrounds. What do you envisage surrounds would be, the catchment area?
Well, the catchment area for Kirikiri is defined approximately by 17,000 people. So that includes Waipapa and Rangitana, and so all those people who would benefit from the safety to the schools.
And my second question is, so you're speaking in support of the recommendation on item 6.2 today? You
Yes,
support that in principle?
yes. I mean, that's the best thing that we have at the moment. So go ahead and send the application to Wellington, and let's hope, fingers crossed, that it will be approved. And if not, we still have to do something. Then maybe a targeted rate is not necessary. I'm saying that if we don't get external funding, then we need to do it ourselves.
Asking that because we had a discussion at our community board meeting the other day, and around this, which has been circulated, and we did support in principle.
Yeah, sure. Great.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for your presentation to us. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
I just got a comment really, and yeah, I'm surprised to see a new report as well, Prof. Thanks for your contribution. One of the things that is annoying me is two fellas on scooters, male or female, can't pass each other on a footpath. They've been doing it for the past 70 odd years if they're in a scooter on our narrow roads. So passing bays could work, or just a little courtesy pull into a driveway. So I don't buy that one. I'm really annoyed that this new report, and I will find out what it's cost, and it's, you know, it seems the scope's quite different to where we're at. And the kids that did that review on our behalf for the 2,100 odd kids that go in and use Honeheke Road, they did a great job, and we were there. We thought, really disappointed to miss that funding opportunity. But the I agree with kids, our Belinda, or community board chair, the targeted rate, that's important, and it could be just linked to that school zone, in fact, because they are zoned, those schools, but there's a lot of kids, and we need to do something. Just to find money zone.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, with that, we will jump straight into item 6.2. Which is on page, oh, shoot, 82. The recommendation is that
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
The recommendation is that the Koukou Transport Committee received the report Transport Choices Kitty Active No Alternatives. If I could get a mover for this, please. Happy to move. If I could get a seconder. So the research. Calvin, I know we've got Elizabeth, who was the author of this report with us. I wondered if you wanted to add anything or to take.
Through the chair, I'll just add in respect to the funding. The compilation of this report was funded under the original pre-implementation 100% subsidy funding that was provided as part of the Transport Choices program. So part of that funding was phase 1 of the total, and that funding was about developing detailed design. When the project implementation funding was removed, it was repurposed that by approval to actually look at what a wider alternate may look like. So this was funded out of that project. Is there anything else you have to add?
Thank you, Calvin. The only other thing I would add that was spoken to in the deputation is the idea of the roundabout on Koukou Heke. That was never included in the Transport Choices project. It's an additional project that we have applied for as part of our 24-27 LTP funding.
Thank you for that. And can I just note that it's great to have so many of our staff members from Northern Transportation Alliance and changes today, Calvin. Appreciate that. We have.
Sorry, what does that mean? It's a surplus one, an additional one, and when we receive it, I'm just asking. Like, was there one done before that was accepted, and this is on top of that one?
Elizabeth may add to this, but through the chair, just the original scope that was provided for the Transport Choices was targeted at the outcomes of the Transport Choices program.
Yeah.
So it was rather limited in the scope that we were able to put forward. When the constraints of that scope were removed, the team looked at more holistic approach to improving pedestrian and cycle access. You want to add to that? Or?
Yeah, through the chair, if I can add, it is not an additional report. NCC was commissioned from the very beginning to do the detailed design of the Transport Choices work, and they've just expanded that scope to include more of the CBD and that whole loop throughout Kerry, looking at a barrier-free transport network for pedestrians and cyclists. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we were able to do that with the 100% NZTA subsidy.
That's right.
We'll go to Deputy Minister Stratford.
Thank you. When I read this report, I was, excited given my experience on the Disability Action Group and the rising need for, removing barriers around our busiest town. And just to my colleague, Councillor McNally, one of the issues that comes up in our people come to the Disability Action Group and raise with us is that, they've got these couples on scooters and they like they're on walkers whatever that thing is
Yeah.
called, a walking frame. And they like to walk next to each other, not in a convoy. So, you know, when you and Bridget are on your scooters, you can think of us if they're 2.5 metres wide eventually. But I also was disappointed to see that the bus loop hadn't been captured because and so maybe we've managed to address because I remember when the last reports came saying that we weren't getting the, whatever that funding was, that the bus loop might be able to be funded out of our existing budget. But you can put my mind at ease that we're still addressing that. Thanks.
So through the chair, the reason it's not included in this is it was focused specifically on Kitty, and we are continuing with the bus in the far north, focusing on the most popular routes, the Kaitaia Loop, in order to at least get some signage and some shelters as implementation. Again, that 100% funding from Waka Kaitaia.
Fabulous to hear. Yep. Kia ora, that's all I.
Thank you, councillor Vucic. Then I've got councillor Foy.
Thank you, Mayor Moko. I know we only received the report, but I do wonder, and maybe that give consideration. When you look at the, as Rolf has spoken, on behalf of a much bigger group, surely we can look at some of these ideas so we can implement something to introduce some of the measures, the designs that the students did, and to get something actually on the ground fairly quickly. I can't see why we can't be flexible and look at some different options. So that's my comment, and I like staff whoever's involved to consider that. Thank you.
Councillor Foy.
Thank you, Mayor Moko, and also thank you to the NTA staff for being there today. I've just a couple of questions, not just about this project, but actually the CBD of Kirikiri as a whole. I note that in year 3 of the long-term plan, $5.5 million is currently being proposed and out for consultation towards the Kirikiri road improvements for the CBD. On top of that is this project here, which focuses on pedestrian linkages. Can the NTA staff please comment about the planning as a whole of the two projects combined and subsidies available for the $5.5 million roading project, and how this project may address some of the issues of the CBD roading project or not, and looking at the overall outcomes for roading for Kirikiri as a result of these two projects combined, or the opportunities for this one, considering that the $5.5 million is currently out for consultation.
The chair, I believe, is Krishna going to answer that one?
Krishna's checking right now.
Krishna's just checking that one right now. Just for clarity, this project in particular is not funded at present in the next LTP. There is a level of interconnectedness, but Krishna is just checking. Can we come back to that one once Krishna gets the?
Did you have any other questions, councillor Foy, or we can jump over the chairboard and come back?
Yep. I've got one other question probably for Kushla about renewals. There's two different buckets of money. One is a renewals funding for existing footpaths that will be upgraded. So I'm not sure of renewals funding available for the footpaths in the locality for this project, and if the community board and staff have been made aware of those potential budgets. Second of all, collaboration of the second bucket of money, which is the community boards. I think it's $140,000 per year over the next 3 years in the long-term plan cycle. And has there been reporting on the collaboration of the renewals funding, the community board funding for the next 3 years, as well as this bucket of money that's been applied for from central government?
Yeah, for the footpath renewals, we have a 3-year program, which we have sought funding for, so I can share that list of EP.
And in regards to the community board's prioritization, certainly Chair Ward can speak to that, but Carrie is currently not part of the 3-year 24-27 prioritization.
Not even for renewals, so for renewals. All right, we'll go to Chair Board.
My question was really just around the crash description. The crash description, it doesn't actually include, I know it doesn't include wheeled devices, so it's not picking up scooters and mobility scooters, only pedestrians. And yet there are, and I'm aware of accidents that there has been. Now, bearing in mind they actually only go on the footpath, will this scope be broadened because, or have you got statistics on the accidents? So it's the speed of those things, and with people backing in and out of driveways in our CBD area, the commercial area, I know that's been identified in the report, but just the statistics on that might give it a bit away.
Thank you. Through the chair, that crash report was actually done for not only pedestrians, but anybody on a wheel device. So bicycles, scooters, electric scooter, mobility scooter, any type of wheel device, and that is the crash data. Part of the other piece of this report is information we've gotten district-wide about the lack of or failure to yield vehicles to pedestrians, particularly at commercial driveways. And we're working closely with the communications group in order to put out a district-wide campaign raising driver awareness of pedestrians right of way at those commercial driveways. So that's one piece we're doing now, but the crash statistics in the report do include all of this.
So they're not reported. In other words, what you're saying is those incidences are not reported.
Perhaps there certainly is always an underreporting, particularly if it's a near miss situation. Often it doesn't pick up through police, and that's where we're pulling our data.
Thank you, Councillor Foy.
Thank you, Mayor Moko. I'm just trying to use my online etiquette with the chat. Now that I've asked my questions, I just wanted to make a point about the questions that I've asked, because what I'm trying to highlight with my questions is that all of the different budgets that are available have not been presented into one project, and I have asked the NTA staff previously about knowing the renewals funding in advance so that our community boards and our council can basically tag on to the renewals funding so that we can get a better outcome for using existing budget lines. And further to that, I think that because I'm highlighting the $5.5 million in year 3 of the long-term plan for the CBD roading project, I think it's very strange that the NTA staff wouldn't address that, given it's the largest roading project budget, singular roading project budget that's unsubsidized from our council, that's currently in our long-term plan. And I think, and I'd just like to highlight that to the NTA staff that we need to be given this information in advance so we can plan cohesively instead of looking at the different silos and not getting a better overall outcome, because the budgets aren't pulled into one large budget instead of the silos that have smaller effects and the community don't get the better outcomes. So I'd like to hear Kushla's response about the 5.5 million and also how the opportunities for this project. What I think that Councillor Stratford is just interrupting.
No, it doesn't actually relate to this paper, Councillor Foy.
I think it's already full moon phase. So, Calvin, if we could get,
Something that's not even in the paper.
I guess what I'm hearing, and I do agree in some respects to what Councillor Foy has raised. I'll rule against both of those points of orders because I don't know what they're about, to be honest.
No,
So if I could please get, for one, whenever a paper comes to us, we're always looking down the tunnel, and paper will hardly ever capture the broader or wider scope of things that are going on for that community of interest and budgetary lines that then we at a governance level could put the puzzle together or try and make decisions in this space to see things favourably. So we're always looking at things in silos and then forever asking questions about things on the other side of that though, Councillor Foy, is that long-term plan budget lines are currently only are out for deliberation, so none of that is a given at the same time. But Kusha, if you wanted to just comment on, because I'm vaguely aware of this $5.5 million that we've put up in the LTP for deliberation for the Kitty Ring Road project. Are you comfortable with just talking a little bit about that?
Yeah, through the chair, it's for buying land for the CBD bypass, so it's in preparation for that in year 3.
Thank you for that.
Just
For buying land, okay.
securing of land for the planned ring road project, which is part of the wider Kitty strategic plan. Just with respect to the comment about renewals, the feedback from previously received about the renewals program has been taken on board. At present, we do not know the confirmed renewals funding and will not likely know the renewals funding until the NLTP, National Land Transport Plan outcomes are known and the confirmation of obviously Council's LTP. As previously reported, that will come to Council around October. When we bring those funding components together, which is where we'll have a clear picture, and from that we'll be able to provide renewals programs. I think the thing with this paper at the moment is about a potential project to have on the shelf should funding opportunities come about, as opposed to any request to council for funding for this. And staff will continue to work with the wider Kiri spatial plan to look at funding opportunities through BAU to implement components of this project conceptually.
Thank you. Councillor Howard,
Kia ora, Patai. Will we receive a paper about fixing up the main road of Koukou? Just wondering, I don't seem to have seen anything. Maybe for the next meeting, no?
No, this is probably something that would be good to raise with our community board. A few things around it. One, the difference between Kitty and Koukou's main street is a state highway owned by Watahi, rather than council itself. And two, there are periphery projects on, namely Councillor Kappa's Koukou Community Centre and Civic Hub, which is being actioned as a catalyst to see further revitalisation of our main street here in Koukou with streetscape funding also available on the site to see some stuff happening. But in terms of a specific report, I probably wouldn't ask our NTA staff to put together something which is outside of their direct scope. However, I think it would be appropriate maybe to tag on to a future workshop for our committee discussing, helping us get a better understanding of the difference between the relationship and how we have to deal with NZTA or ourselves or our community boards when we're looking at placemaking projects that include roading or footpaths. It would be a nice topic to actually have a general discussion around.
I believe it would be beneficial to have Steve Martin or someone like that as part of that workshop.
I suppose I still want to know, will it happen? I know it's an NZTA thing, but I'll leave there. It's all right. Still working out in my head.
No, we'll go to Deputy Mayor Stratford for right of reply.
Oh, Steve's got his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Councillor McNally.
I just want to, what I've heard, because there's no funding in the budget for any footpath changes in Kiri or anywhere else, unless it is a renewal. So hopefully the renewals will widen them while they're doing them, allow for whatever is wanting. But just to be clear, we've heard all sorts, but there's no money in the long-term plan, 24 to 27. We're another 3 years away before we can do anything here, unless we find another funding stream. Bang on the minister's door and change it.
Yeah.
And that's annoying.
events like Cockerill.
No, that's central government, sorry, central government.
Minister.
Right,
Deputy Administrator.
and Steve, what I was gonna say, thank you.
Thank you. We'll put receiving this non-decision making report to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed to
In
abstentions.
favour.
The motion is carried. Thank you very much. With that, we will go pause for a 15-minute break because I need a coffee and to go to the toilet. And during that break, Calvin, NTA staff might make it easier for them to respond to questions. And we've got quite a few.
First in, first served.
I don't think that's, I don't think that gets them running, Kelly.
You're welcome to join us for a cuppa.
Thank you.
I know, that's why I was, point of order, irrelevant. Sorry.
First up, after that.
So,
expenditure
that
challenge.
is correctly the.
Kia ora, Mr. Kappa. Fancy meeting you. Like your buddy, isn't it?
Well,
Listening to. Please do start. Just. Okay.
Think about it, guys.
I think that's what, the book was it.
Good, everybody, just do a count. 5 and count 46. We are going to go to item 5.2 on page 15 now. The recommendation is that our committee recommends that council endorses the NZTA and our staff to proceed with investigations of the proposed average speed safety camera location on Kaitaia Awaroa Road between urban Kaitaia and Mahipura, and endorse the installation of an average speed safety camera and investigations validate the site. Before we move or second, I'll pass over to Calvin and his team, and we've got David. David, welcome online. If you wanted to add anything to the report that we've got in front of us. Calvin?
Kia ora, thank you. I'd like to introduce Tara McMillan, who is our Head of Regulatory Strategic Programs, who lives in Whangarei, who's just come back yesterday at 2 a.m. from a trip to India and still adjusting, and also Kelly Dean, who is our Head of Engagement for the Auckland Northland region. They can represent us well. We also have other people online who can speak to questions in detail, but could I please leave this in Tara's capable hands?
Very much so. So being a NZTA paper primarily, for the table,
Thank you, Calvin. Look, in terms of just broader context, it is a good opportunity to update you on how we are going with the national program. Safety cameras is an incredibly complex one. We're in the final stages of completing the back office infringement system development and on track to start infringing off our first camera mid this year, and we're really excited that first camera is located in this region at that Koukou camera. So
that's Koukou.
Right, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah. So that's a spot speed camera, and we're already receiving test data from that at the moment. That will then lead into the start of the transition of existing cameras from New Zealand Police. So these are spot speed cameras and red light cameras, and then we'll be standing up our mobile camera operation. So plenty still to come. For the purposes of this paper, we've been working with the council, local council staff to identify potential future sites. And one that really stood out for us is the site that we're talking about today in this corridor. It's a 10.7 kilometre length corridor. And sadly, we've seen 8 deaths and serious injuries for the 5-year period commencing 2018. Now, on that corridor, there have been a number of safety improvements. So we have had that speed drop to 80 kilometres. We have had some infrastructure improvements and some drainage work. But as part of a safe system approach, we really do look to a combination of interventions in order to be able to achieve the right risk profile to protect our travelling public. So this particular site we think is a good candidate to consider for average speed cameras. Now these are our new technology cameras. They allow us to put a camera at either end of the corridor and be able to assess average speed through the length of the corridor. They're far more effective than spot speed cameras, some 46% more effective. Also, I think what's important to note is we often get asked the question, are cameras just revenue generating exercises? I think we had a conversation in the break. The reality is we measure benefits of cameras in lives saved and serious injuries avoided. This is not about revenue collection. In fact, we want at these medium to high risk locations to get our drivers to slow down. So we are very overt, quite big signage in place, and we will be rolling out signage for all of the existing camera sites, plus any new ones come on stream. So this site we think is a good one for us to step into the next phase of investigations. Now, what that would look like is actually doing some speed testing on that corridor. So we're actually testing to see whether we are seeing people travelling above that 80 kilometres speed limit and what risk that poses. And it also allows us to get out on the ground and actually identify whether those sites are viable from the ability to install a concrete pad, put a pole in place, put a camera in place to be able to maintain that site, to get electricity to the site. There is quite a bit of complexity that goes into the actual site location. And very importantly, the opportunity to engage so many local people. So that's critically important and part of the next stage of investigation. As with your previous items, a big caveat on this before we go into any kind of construction is it will come down to the government policy statement and available funding, which will dictate if and when we proceed with any physical construction activities. So I guess what we're seeking today is enforcement to move to that investigation stage.
Thank you for that. Was there any further commentary? I'm happy to move this recommendation if I could get a second one. Councillor, how do we go? I've got a few questions around this one. With NZTA taking over speed cameras from NZ, where will any revenue generated from fines go? Will that go into the National Land Transport Fund?
No, it actually goes into the Crown Consolidated Fund. So we don't receive any of the revenue, and currently that's where all revenue from cameras goes currently.
What is the Crown Consolidated Fund used for?
Government is so Treasury and government make decisions around how that funding is used.
It's not earmarked to the area that it was collected from. All right. My other question was around the potential timeline. So say this, should this be favourable? And I would say that thinking of this location, yeah, people do still speed. I was sitting on council in the last term when we actually consultation around lowering the speed limit for this section here. In terms of implementation, what would be the timelines?
Yeah, so if we got the endorsement today, our first step would be to come back here around the end of April to start the investigation work. So we'd be looking at doing speed testing over a period of months. That would allow the time while we're doing all of that investigation and validation to occur probably between April and the end of the year. That would allow time for us to be then identifying funding, any funding constraints or funding opportunities to then move into construction. And construction would take the best part of it, an additional kind of six to 12 months to put into place. We would be looking to run the camera and in terms of, we don't just switch it on and start infringing. We have a 4-week lead-in time where we issue notices, letting drivers know that the camera is now in operation, and then we will start infringing at the end of roughly that 4 period. So look, this if we don't get the funding, then this may sit in the pecking order as a potential camera for the future, which could be years down the track. So it's not a fast process. It's not that we would have this up and running by the end of the year. The other thing that I'll add is average speed cameras are new, and we've got further testing to do on those average speed cameras, and the current ones we're looking at, if we turn them on, won't be getting turned on until late this year, next year. So still a way to go.
Thank you. I have one more question. Oh, I remember they had, when I was in Italy years ago, they had average speed cameras on motorways, and you can't speed because it's going to capture, for the whole entire length. So you can't just slow down for the camera once you know where it is and then speed up like people do at Snake Hill and Cody and so I'm in favour of this type for actually managing driver behaviour. My final question was that an MOU could be undertaken should this be favourable and we install these, and NZTA could look to using our existing contractors around maintenance, and there could be funding received there. Could you just provide a little bit more information around? Because the word that's sticking out is may.
Yeah,
What I wouldn't want to see is additional service having to be provided by this council on behalf of central government or its agencies that comes with an unfunded mandate on our people.
yeah, okay. So obviously in your capacity as the road controlling authority on local roads, we need to have an agreement in place for us to be able to access that camera. This should not incur any cost for local council, so the maintenance costs absolutely sits with NZTA. The reason why there's may in there is it might make sense for you. You may as well decide that actually you want us to use our maintenance providers to service that site on an ongoing basis. So we put may in there as an opportunity for us to explore what works best for council and to keep the costs as low as possible for our public.
I've got a final question. I always like to look at opportunities. So if NZTA, we're going to be looking into doing significant amount of work around the viability or installation or implementation of these average safety speed cameras along this section here. This section connects, one of the main satellite towns for Kaitaia Temperature, Ahipara, to town. I think it's also a part of what's the big New Zealand walk from the top to the bottom? There are a lot of walkers there actually.
Te Araroa Trail.
Trail?
Oh, there is one.
Yeah.
Te Araroa walking trail.
Yeah.
There's no actual trails, walk on the road on the culvert. But if do you think there are any opportunities here where council could leverage, and we could pause recording so you're not recorded by your bosses here, leverage additional funding, or if we were to look at scoping projects here so that, if there is a contractor that's going to be doing work, well, let's just expand the portfolio of the work that they'll potentially be doing along this corridor. So we could look at, say, a shared pathway for Ahipara locals and Te Araroa trail users and cyclists to use between Ahipara village and Kaitaia township.
Yes, so there are always opportunities for us to consider when we are doing any kind of site work. So if you think about us doing construction work to put a concrete pad in, we would have to look at road closures, that kind of thing, to be able to get to leverage the closures, to be able to look at the combination of different works that could proceed. So I think that is a coordination exercise around what that could look like. The great thing is that we have time at this stage. So if we know what your future plans are, the key here is that there is funding available. And I know all the balls are up in the air at the moment around funding from a central government perspective and contributions, particularly in the cycleways area. That we can absolutely explore how we would look to coordinate some of those activities to ultimately reduce the cost of all of them down overall. So if we're having to close a road, I think that's up to us to communicate what that timeframe would look like and to see if there's opportunities to take advantage of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll go to Councillor Hauki.
Oh, no, I've forgotten my question, sorry. It took so long. It's all right.
Is that a bit of sass? Wow. We'll go to Councillor Boyd and Councillor McNally.
Thank you, Mayor Moko, and thank you for the presentation. First and foremost, I live at Ahipara and I drive this road multiple times a day and have done my whole life. And Councillor Harawira also will know this road well. Although I want to ensure that everybody's safe and that we don't have crashes, I think what is always recognised for our Kaitaia area and through Pukepoto, which is the small settlement in between Kaitaia and Ahipara, that has 3 hapu there, is that people don't want speeding tickets, they want the road fixed. And also, as our Mayor Moko has highlighted, this is the key route that the community has been campaigning to have as a walking and cycling route via the Te Araroa Trail, through from Ahipara through to Kaitaia. And Elizabeth Stacey's there from the NTA. She's been doing a fantastic job with Pukipoto in the low-cost, low-risk works that have been done through the settlement. And that has been ongoing for 3 years, and the works have finally been completed. So a huge mihi to her and her team. Sean Baker came as well to make that a reality. So I personally am not in favour of having cameras that can incur cost to our community that has a low socioeconomic demographic when actually our roads are terrible. And this road in particular has got giant drains on each side of it throughout the whole route. The ones through Pukipoto have been remedied through adding the culvert through the settlement. But I just wanted to highlight that to the NTA staff, that the community are going to say, why are you trying to put up speed cameras that will give us fines when the road is so terrible? And the actual huge risk is the big drains on each side, which is why we have high deaths and serious injuries on this road. If that can be responded to.
Through the chair, Councillor Foy, look, hear your concerns from a local community perspective. The feedback we've had with average speed cameras is there has been a higher level of acceptance and support for this particular type of camera. So we recognise that sometimes there can be a lapse in concentration. What average speed cameras allow, and with the heavily signposted, is that in the instance that someone does travel past that first camera at a slightly higher speed, they've got the length of the corridor to adjust and to bring that down to avoid an infringement by the time they get to the end of the corridor. I guess why we have picked that site is that the early desktop studies that we have undertaken shows that there is quite a significant of risk that the community is carrying there, and we point to those 8 deaths and serious injuries that have occurred since 2018. So it's a bit of a hot spot for us. Your comments, Councillor Foy, around maintenance. Absolutely, we hear you, and this, for all intents and purposes, the signals out of this GPS, this government policy statement, indicates significantly higher investment in maintenance and contributions towards maintenance activities that I think is going to really service the north well. So that's looking favourable. I guess my last comment will be, it's not one thing over another thing. This is a combination of different treatments that we need to do, maintenance alongside our road safety interventions. And we absolutely stand by that this is not about putting an additional burden on local communities in terms of infringements. We're just asking anyone travelling roads to travel at or below the speed limit to ensure they get to where they need to get safely, and those around them do also.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll go to Councillor McNally.
Page 15, you mentioned that the previous government introduced this. Has there been any change in that, what they're talking about under this GPS?
So as part of the draft GPS that was out for circulation, and we're just waiting for the finalisation now, there was a strong indication that the current government is supportive of enforcement, certainly focused on road safety, and that this is the migration of the continuation of transferring cameras off police. And the big goal here is to ultimately end up with an effective and efficient enforcement operation with respect to speeds and red light.
Focus on enforcement would be relative to the state of the books and the income.
So they're definitely clear, and we've had very clear advice from the minister that this is not about revenue generating and the benefits associated with this. It's about serious injuries. Yeah.
If you look at the New Zealand Institute of Economic Research, travel times impact productivity and the economy, and we're seeing that with the closure of Mangamokra and Brendurwan right now, and it's massive, a couple of million plus, probably daily. And if you read the report that they've put out recently to the Northern Corporate Group, you know, the upgrade of our roading system will actually have a significant impact, economic, social, environmental. But my question is, in the summary, financial implications, you say there was no cost to the Far North District Council. And this relates a little bit to Councillor Foy's comment. It doesn't consider economic cost. There's no relation to it. The other thing is the economic cost to us as a district is the reduction in road condition improvements. The funding that goes into this type of project takes it away from improving the risk profile, which we talk about on page 17, and integration with other safety investments. So it's all got to be combined. And I do wonder whether the safety cameras should be the last part of that puzzle, that investment puzzle or program. And, you know, the other thing is the cost of NZTA for camera staff, debt collection. This removes money from that back to basics approach of this GPS. So the financial implications, I don't think have been covered off well enough in this report, personally. So the question, I'm with Councillor Foy on that. What she referred to giant grains, there's some big people up there, so, you know, there's big grains. The other problem I have with these point-to-point cameras is I travel to Matamata frequently to see my daughter. If I get up at 3 in the morning, I can be there in 4 hours without speed. Going on the 110 kilometre highway, South Auckland, you travel on that, you know, you can, and your average speed is just on 100k, not speeding. No hold-ups. If I leave at 8 or 9, it takes between 6 and 7 hours just because of the Auckland traffic. So point-to-point cameras, if you had one in Whangarei and one in Matamata, I'd be nailed every time because you're probably working on a 40-odd kilometre an hour. My computer on my truck shows that I average 48 kilometres over 146,000 k that I've done on it.
So couple of points. We put average speed cameras on a continuous length of corridor where the speed remains unchanged over that corridor for the average speed. So the corridor we're talking about today is 80 kilometres and 10.7 kilometre length. With respect to economic productivity, and absolutely recognise that, what you won't see in the report is we've got analysis and evidence that shows that cameras are actually effective in reducing crash rates. So we know the higher the speed, the higher the likelihood of a crash, and then the higher the severity of the crash if one does occur. So by reducing average speeds, we reduce the actual incidence of crashes, which helps keep New Zealand moving. So there are some real benefits that come out of cameras from an economic productivity perspective as well.
I do wonder if they've come off the back of the Aussie system where it's more about truck driver hours, where they have point-to-point stuff and they know exactly when they started.
Yeah.
And they have massive pullover stops so the truck drivers park up and sleep before they can proceed. That makes sense to me, but I'm not sure about this. I'm all about back to basics, fix the road.
Chair, I wonder if I could make a point as well, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course, David.
Thank you. And Tara is my boss rather than the other way around. So she is an expert in this. The Tara made a point earlier that it's not one or the other. There's no reallocation of money from fixing potholes into this. These are different funds. They are funded differently and they have different purposes. So there's no compromises between one or the other. Secondly, the cost economically of a death or serious injury is far greater than the cost of installing a camera. And we can provide you with more information around that. 8 deaths and serious injuries has a significant economic cost and productivity cost in the region. Thirdly, international evidence shows very clearly that average speed corridors actually increase the flow of traffic and people getting from destination to destination. There's studies all across the world. There's studies in Australia where they've set up average speed corridors and people generally speak very highly of them. They help people get their destination faster because traffic flows more regularly through them. So I think there are some, I respect, the comments that come out here, but there are also facts and evidence that show a different perspective on some of those comments. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I'd like all the NZTA and staff in general to stop using potholes. Potholes are a result of poor drainage. And that's the giant drains councillor Foy mentioned. We need to maintain our drains first and foremost. That'll stop substrate failure of our roads, which causes the pothole. It's a city term.
Thank you. We'll go to councillor Vucic and then Chair Gardner.
Yes, so just a couple of questions. I see you're picking up all the cameras. So those spot speed cameras, are they LPR equivalent? You know, can they actually read the license plates?
Yes, so as part of the transition over, we are upgrading the cameras, and so they will over time be using ANPR technology.
Right, I like that. And the second question then, and this is where it's useful for us if we can get some of that information, obviously not the detail, but I can see if you're doing all of that, then looking at the average speed, you can look at the average speed in that corridor collectively and look at the traffic and congestions and changing patterns as well. So I presume you'll be using that when you're looking at making road decisions.
Yes.
Excellent. And I guess our guys can give access to that when you're working with them to make recommendations. Thank you. That's really the only questions I've got there.
Thank you. We'll go to Chair Gardner.
Thank you, Mayor Moko. So just reading the report, so there's just 2 cameras, is that correct? One in the beginning and one in the end, is that correct? Or was there going to be one in the middle somewhere?
No, one at each end.
One at each end, okay. I actually support Councillor Foy on this issue. There's more than just cars that use this road, as we've mentioned, the Te Ara walkers, and they're there all the time. And if anything, the bucket of money could be put towards a shared footpath for cyclists as well as walkers. Thank you. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Gardner. I think you'll find that we don't get to actually choose where the money gets spent, and neither do the NZTA stuff. The Minister has allocated it across the buckets. Councillor Haukiard, how do we?
Mai mahara haki taki mea. I suppose tautoko ngā kōrero Councillor Foy, Nelly, but I keep thinking about the number of deaths there, and what comes to mind is a young woman that had young twins, and you know, those twins were at our school, and so and there were a number of accidents at this place within in a short time. So I agree with everything that's been said, and maybe it should be at the end of other repairs, but I do see the value in it happening. I know, because travelling through Awanui, we've learned if you're over the 50k, you're going to get a $60 fine. So, you know, all these things that, you know, temper down your stuff, and a lot of it is done by locals, not rather than so I'm in favour of it, and that's what comes to mind is that yeah. And yeah, that young girl was a Trent. Her mum works at the Paitaia Hospital, and she has twin girls growing up in our kura without a mum.
Deputy Minister Stratford.
Thank you. A question before I say my comments. There was talk of reducing the speed along that stretch to 65. Did it end up at 65, or is it 80 and 60 in some places?
That's my understanding.
Elizabeth may be able to answer.
Just 80. I don't think dropped.
Through the chair, the speed is 80 with the exception of Pukaporo Village, where the speed is 60 and a variable 30 for the school and tomorrow.
Very good. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. So the speed has already been reduced, and it's been like that since 22, or maybe not even implemented until last year. Yeah. So if we can get these cameras in place, it's another step towards changing driver behaviours, and it's true that the speed has reduced. And I remember the submissions, you know, we had one from AA saying it's not the speed, it's the other things that are making people crash, but it's not it's not our job, you know, like Okaputahi can't do anything about the drugs or the alcohol. We can try and do something about speed. So I support the cameras and I hope that they can be put in place when, you know, if funding's confirmed this time, and if it's not, you know, for another 3 years, you know, then it's done then. And if Roddy was here today, he would have wanted to speak to this item in support of it, because he could share a kōrero from, you know, a local perspective, people that live alongside the roads in these areas who've had to go out and tend to the fatalities or the serious accidents. It's really traumatizing for the people who live along those roads, but it's also, it leaves a scar in your community, like Whaihilda has said there. So, you know, this is just one step to helping change driver behaviour, because it's already 80 k's and people aren't going at the speed. It's 65 in the Pukepoto area.
Just after listening to all the discussion, my question is around the long term for the cameras. Because once you've gathered the data and you're able to identify the behaviors, the triggers and everything, what then happens to the cameras? Are they, and because you've mentioned that it's not a funding exercise, what happens to those cameras then? Are they intended to be taken out and more different communications around behavior of driving to change, or will they continue to stay there for some other reason?
So through the chair, what we tend to find is we put a camera in and we start to see the behaviour change, and we see that directly through reduction in infringements and speeds dropping. If we were then to remove the camera and say, great, it's only a matter of time before those behaviours creep back in again. So we tend to look at the camera as being a longer term solution for a specific location. We're always predicting what's going to change with respect to that location, so that would be taken into account from a long-term perspective. In terms of the data and the information that are captured by the cameras, we are using these cameras, the spot speed and the average speed cameras, specific for identifying speeding offences. So as and when we go through the administrative process of identifying if a speeding offence has occurred, issue an infringement if it has done, we then get rid of that data. So we don't retain any non-infringing data. We have no purpose for that. So we're and that's made very publicly clear through our privacy assessments statements, which we publish openly on our website.
Okay, so that tells me that actually the camera actually acts as an indicator straight away rather than collecting any other data.
Correct. So currently all the camera does is it looks up it takes a snapshot of the number plate. So it automatically registers the number plate. That gets cross-referenced back into our motor vehicle register to be able to identify the owner. It's recording the average speed between the two cameras. And then we're working in the background to go, has there been an offence? If so, start the information process.
Not quite sure, because I think for me the camera was then indicated to me as the driver saying, oh, I better slow down, or I'm going to continue driving to the speed to allow them to get my average speed, and I'm not too sure which one is actually impacting on the behaviour.
Okay, so a couple of things. On approach to the camera, there'll be a big sign saying safety camera in operation. That is the first signal to the driver to check their speed and to make sure that they are travelling at or below the speed. If they're doing all the right things, they don't need to worry. If they look at their speedo and they're travelling higher than the posted speed, then we would expect a correction. If not, then that individual would expect to see an infringement coming through in the post.
We'll go to Chair Ward.
I just had a question around the number plate recognition and the ability of these cameras. We have a lot of repeater single vehicles and issues with number plates from far north. Will that information be used and picked up on for anything other than the speed infringement?
So currently we're using for these cameras, the purpose is to look at speed infringement or red light running for our red light cameras. Just for those two purposes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And after all of this great discussion, the investigations may find that we don't continue, but we'll put it to the vote anyway and see where we get to.
Yep.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Councillor McNally
Opposed?
and Councillor Foy. The recommendation is carried. Thank you very much for your time with us today.
Thank you for your time.
All right, we have got 10 minutes left to our meetings. That doesn't mean you don't get to speak if you wish, but we're going to go straight into item 4.1, the confirmation of previous minutes. I'm happy to move. Councillor Busich, was there anything in the minutes other than a lot of people moving in and out? Did anyone caught? All right, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed or abstentions?
Aye.
Carried. We'll now go to item 5.1, which is just the page over on page 14. And that is, what we'll do is we'll just change the recommendation to be solely from Councillor Steve McNally, as Councillor Court is not here today, and I'm happy to move. I can second that. Thank you, Vicky Stratford. I'm happy to pass over to you, Councillor McNally.
Thank you. So I went to the Rural Transport thing in Wellington recently. You can find that on your table. I think Government New Zealand Transport Forum, they're doing some good work. And one of the key points that came out of that was that they, after the draft BPS was put out and they made a submission on that, that they were contacted within a couple of days by the Minister, which they haven't had that sort of input, not the prior to, and that it just shows on page 7 of that little booklet there, it shows the key GPS points that they were promoting. And one of the ones that's key from my point of view is greater flexibility for council. We know where our contractors and staff know where the roading problems are. We just need a bit more flexibility around the budget items so we can actually improve under the Back to Basics program. And the other key message is on the last page where it talked about spatial planning and infrastructure and just ensuring better alignment through local and regional priorities and planning and investment. I think we're reasonably well aligned up there in the north, but also building evidence or a database of planning projects. So we've got a pipeline of work. And that came out really strongly in this other paper, National Infrastructure Planning, that was presented by Jeff Cooper down there. And he talked about, well, the interesting thing is what we have and what we spend. Second page there, if you roll over, local government have 76 billion of roading assets, infrastructure assets, and spend 4.5 billion per year on average infrastructure investment. So there's a lot of money. And then the really concerning one was we need that much money to fix some stuff. No chance of funding it, which is on page 3. And that's the infrastructure challenge, as it was put to the group, was it's equivalent to a 21% increase in average income tax per taxpayer. So imagine your tax going up that much to fund it. The next page, the key feature was create a genuine pipeline of work. We need to do it at a local level as well, just make sure that we can create all that. And then prioritise, look at the needs. This is all pretty basic stuff, but we've got to do it better at a local level, I believe. And if you can read all that infrastructure priorities. Oh, actually that graph there is a bit concerning when it looks at where the money goes. This one here, a pretty coloured wave one. You can see there's a big chunk goes into water care services, and then the major cities get big chunks of the balance. We don't even feature on some of that sort of stuff. The infrastructure priorities gives a pretty good interesting list of what's needed there. But where that led to was the Australian model. And they undertake assessments at key stages in the planning phase. So this is their pipeline of work going forward. And that's how they get the funding priorities going forward. Hopefully we've achieved that around the laning of Auckland to Northland, and particularly in conjunction with the New Zealand Institute of Economic Report that come out a week or two ago for the Northland corporate growth that indicated huge economic, social, environmental benefits by doing that. And not just for Northland is a little bit, but the GDP impact for New Zealand, the whole nation is huge. And that's what I've said many occasions in the past. People don't realise Northland is the food basket of Auckland and other parts of New Zealand and our national GDP. So I'll leave it at that, seems we're running out of time. Have a read of that, it's worth a look.
Through the chair, just so elected members are aware, for the last 12 months, we've been in contact with the Infrastructure Commission initially about the workload impacts from the emergency works events. But they've also, they use the data within the activity management plans to inform some of this information. And we have a meeting set up in May, myself, Jeff and Dawn, talk about how we better inform the regional pipeline and projects and those sorts of things. So we're actively engaged with the Infrastructure Commission on some of that.
Thank you, Calvin. And thank you, Councillor McNally, for the report back. And appreciate you representing our sector and provincial sector meeting for LGBT down there. I didn't have any other commentary, other than just to highlight a follow on from that is the Local Government New Zealand Infrastructure Forum that I'll be looking to attend, but we have to look into budgets, big requests from other members to attend as well, but it might be make sense for you to follow on that one. It's part two of the infrastructure forum. Councillor Deputy Stratford, you were seconder. The other members? We'll put that to a vote. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, the motion is carried. We'll now go to item 6.1 on page 32. This is our the recommendation that we receive a report for our transport activity update. I'm happy to move if I could get a seconder. Thank you, Councillor McNally. I just had a question, please, Calvin. The new speed limits for the Kirikiri Bay of Islands catchment were certified by Wakatotahi, and staff are now working towards implementation of the new speed limits. Not to relitigate that entire conversation for the fourth or fifth time, maybe. But I just had a question on that around the school zones that were proposed in there, noting that the minister is looking to, the minister would like variable speed zones instead of fixed speed zones. I want to make sure we're not going to be, even though that resolution allowed for it, I wouldn't want us to be putting in fixed speed zones at those schools in that area, which then will have to be dug up when that finally comes through from central government. Could you talk a little bit around the speed zones, so the school zones for this catchment?
So through the chair, the Elizabeth can jump in if I get this wrong, but the speed limits that have been certified are those that were in the outcome of the consultation and passed by council. So there are combinations, I think, of variable and fixed. Where they are fixed, it is noted that the implementation of the variable speed limit is significantly more expensive than just putting up signs of a fixed speed limit. But a change from fixed to variable would require some form of consultation under the current rules. So effectively, we've got certified speed limits under the current rules. Were we to change any of that, it would require any consultation and recertification. So at the moment, we're proceeding with what seemed to be the lowest risk option under what was certified by council. Anything else to add to that, Elizabeth?
Could you, off the top of your head, tell me how many fixed speed zones are going in across schools and what high level cost estimate would be on the implementation of those themselves?
I'll try and burn it up here. It's all right. So off the top of my head, our fixed school zones are Koukou School, where the underlying road speed is 30 kilometers per hour for all of Koukou Village. So no additional cost.
So that wouldn't change anyway.
That's correct. The school in Pahia, same situation as Apua, underlying speed is 30. Kiri High School and Primary School on Honeheke, that's a fixed speed of 30 with the underlying road of 40 kilometers per hour. So we are doing static signage there. And then our variable speed limits. Oh,
Does static signage mean it changes? Or static means it's fixed? Yep.
fixed, yes, that's right. The school on Blue Gum Lane, One Global Academy, I think is the name of it, is also a fixed speed, underlying road speed 30, so no changes there. Bay of Islands International Academy is a variable speed limit. Also a variable. That's correct. Also, a variable speed limit for the two Kura that are in Matauri Bay.
Te Kura, Kakamori, or Whanganui, Matauri Bay School.
Yes. And that is all of the schools in the catchment, as far as I can remember off the top of my head.
So I hear the Honeheke Road is one that potentially would have to be a variable speed.
The difference in speed for the length of that speed zone, yeah, it's 30 kilometers
So
versus.
I'm hearing that we're actually quite safe around the fact that even though we've made this decision and we've got incoming changes by the end of this year from central government, it won't actually affect the speed catchment review and implementation of speed changes.
You have taken my very long explanation. Thank you.
I already thought so. I just wanted confirmation
Yes, thank you.
that maybe anyone who's watched can make a story out of. I'm going to lose next year's election because of this one. Thank you very much. That was it from me. I'll go to Councillor McNally.
Yeah, just a couple of things. It's going to bore you again, this maintenance. Under the Northern Report, page 55, there's 161 cesspit grates were cleared, so that's in the towns. Then you go to culverts, 1 culvert end was cleared, 0 culverts were flushed, and 9 metres of culvert pipes were replaced, which is probably 2 culverts. And I was just trying to find this southern area part of it. I just, you know, this is our basic maintenance stuff. And then the other thing I noticed with the footpath renewals, there's X done in different places, but there's 0 you can do. We've got a month or 2 to go to finish the year end off.
So X.
I'll find the number for you.
0 we can.
There's no money left, is what I meant. Page 61, footpath renewals, length completed February 24, 130, length outstanding for year ending 23-24. It's that. What was I getting to? And if I can find the southern one, I'll bore you with that as well. It's just, I just think concerns around some of the basics, with culvert clearing and things like that. What is it going to be if we get another wet winter?
Here we are suffering from what has previously been reported in terms of the available discretionary funding, but making sure that we are getting maximum out of the lump sum is a key focus of Bernard and maintenance in that area. The available discretionary funding for drainage is somewhere in the vicinity of about 150,000 per year. So it doesn't leave a lot of scope at present, which is why I want to feel major investment in that area.
Yeah. Part of what I brought up, and it's across all provincial New Zealand, are the same problems, which we need a bit more variability in what we can do with the transport funding model when it arrives, rather than have it siloed into X, Y, Z.
Agree. You may check it.
Thanks. I just wanted to quickly highlight an issue that came up about 6 weeks ago. No, it was 2 months ago now. And the lady texted me in this meeting actually. So I was like, do you want to come in and do a deputation? Just waiting for Cookson Road grading. And I know this is, I'm a cracked record, but it is frustrating when the grader was on Puckaboo Road and didn't, just carry on and do Cookson Road. So for the next, the weeks after the grading gets done on Puckaboo, I've got a weekly text from this lovely lady. And there's an RFS and I've been told it's going to be done this April, so I followed it up to see if it's still this month or going to be next month.
I think in part the background of that, when we go through the respective grading dry season, there is a list of priority targeted sites that is developed and held, so where the major safety corrogations are. So when we do get some rain and some moisture, there is the instance of having to do spot grading at those targeted sites, which does leave the perception of the grading across the road. But often those cases of rain will only leave moisture in the road for 2 to 3 days. So we need to actually focus on the ones that have got targeted issues and safety issues. It does look like we're just bouncing all over the place, but in some cases, but with the recent moisture, we're looking at implementing, as I understand it, a blanket grade right across the network leading into winter, before we move into the inspection-led approach.
Thanks, because her road is like, you go through the crater and you lose half your car. It's really bad. Like many of the other roads.
Through the chair, if I could just add, we are making sure we work with our contractors at the moment. Whether opportunities we have to make sure we get resource on the ground. So I did highlight to Tanya a week or so back that bit of rain we had. We actually had 8 separate graders out on the far north network alone.
Awesome.
So 4 dispatched through Port Hogan.
That's a new story.
Subcontractors and 4 through Ventia. So those opportunities are taken, and we are encouraging that list of prioritised roads in the off season. When we do have the restricted area provided to us on a weekly basis for our review. So that list is ready to go and be dispatched. Any opportunity.
Thank you.
We'll go to Councillor Foy.
Thank you, Mayor Moko, and thank you for the staff for the report. It won't be a surprise to my fellow elected members, but I just wanted to support Councillor McNally's comments about drainage and about the culvert clearing. I think that all of the rural people that I know that you clear the culverts in summer to be ready for the winter season. And what we were told 6 years ago as elected members is that the new contracts would cover clearing of the culverts and would ensure that our drainage was done correctly, and that the grading and the way the grading was done would ensure that we had crossfall on the road to allow for drainage. There was also a motion that was proposing to spend more money on drainage to the tune of, I think I've had it was $3 million towards drainage works. And that motion didn't pass at that time. But the staff at that time also said that we have sufficient funds for drainage and that drainage will be done as part of these contracts, even though it was highlighted that we wanted to spend money to ensure that works were done. What I'm hearing today from the roading staff, and I know Calvin wasn't there 6 years ago, so I'm just wanting to raise this because he may be learning a bit about the history of the contracts, but drainage, from what we're hearing from our community, has not been done. And from what the report says, particularly in the Northern Ward here, the culverts and the water tables aren't being done as per the lump sum amount. The 2 metres either side of the culvert ends up to half a cube is not being done. And in terms of the water tabling, that really needs to be addressed in terms of a separate bucket of money, even though renewals are not collected for it being a separate asset. We will be doing our contracts for our roads, and I support Councillor McNally's concerns around drainage, and that being a specific element of the contract, and also to ensure that our current contractors are adhering to that contract about what it says about drainage. because the winter will come and our culverts will not be cleared, and we will have the same issues all over again if this is not addressed and if our contractors are not held to account. If the staff can please comment about that, that would be really appreciated.
Through the chair, just with respect to the comment regarding $3 million funding that was considered for drainage at the start of this last LTP. At that point in time, there was a significant uplift in drainage proposed both in the council LTP and the AMP submission. As councillors are aware, that funding was highly moderated when we came through the LTP process, and the drainage funding, along with all other maintenance funding, was reduced. This was reported in the drainage deficit paper that was provided to council 12 to 18 months ago, highlighting that for heavy water cabling, for example, it would take 180 years to get around the rural network based on current funding. This is highlighted in the AMP, and it's proposed to be a significant uplift in funding to support a drainage feature. With respect to contractor performance, completely take that feedback on board. This report is 2 months old, so it's February report. There have been significant discussions with, particularly in the northern zone, about the lump sum drainage activities, and then the disparity between what we're seeing in the south and the north, and that is something that was highlighted both in the Field Force 4 report as well. So it's something that staff are actively working on to ensure council are getting value out of the lump sum in that area.
Right, thank you, Calvin. We'll put that to a vote. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions? And the motion is carried. We now go to item 6.3, our community board footpath program update. If I could get a second, love. Thank you, councillor research. Seeing as we have two of our community board chairs in the room, I wondered if you wanted to provide any commentary to the program update, starting with you, Chairwood.
Really just to thank Elizabeth for the work that she does with the community groups and educating us over the matrix and prioritising of footpaths. You might look at our list there and think, the comment today, there's nothing in Kitty Kitty several times. The reason there's nothing in Kitty Kitty basically is, from the board perspective of prioritising, is that they just don't meet the matrix. Most of these roads we have in here don't have footpaths at all, or are real major safety issues around schools, marae. Some of them have been sitting on our lists for 6 or 7 years. So we get really excited when we can actually deliver something like Koukou, putting our full annual budget towards something like that in such a small community that has such a massive impact. So yeah, just really trying desperately to get as much bang for our buck with our small budgets, and I think we do a really good job. So hats off to my board and to because we do have really good debates over these. I mean, it's not that Kitty Kitty doesn't need footpaths. We have, Elizabeth might remember, I'm not sure how many footpaths on our list, but it's a massive long page. And if we can tick a few off, the matrix shifts. So we do actually end up reprioritising every 3 years, along with the shift in that matrix, and also readdressing the areas around growth. If there's development, suddenly, we don't want to be doing a footpath somewhere in one direction when the growth is happening in another. So we're all about connectivity, and we're just grateful for those budgets and hope that we can keep. And renewals, yes, we would love to have heads up in advance prior to works being done, so that we can actually focus on that connectivity, and also put out the Facebook pages, posts, on our page, to give people the heads up as to a lot of people do walk, particularly since COVID. A lot of people don't have vehicles, and mums and bumps and our that area is going to be dug up. So yeah, thanks for all your work, Caitlin, and thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you for that, Chair Ward. Chair Gardner, I wondered if you wanted to add any commentary for the Safety Footpaths program.
Oh, thank you, Me Moko. Yes, we can be very proud of what we've done in Te Koukou. There is a huge tick off of footpaths in our area, and Elizabeth, thank you so much for helping us with this process. It's just been amazing. She's always there for us. The program of works for 24-27, yes, we have a very small budget and a huge cost. So I'm not quite sure where the money's going to come from to achieve all this. So, but anyway, they've been on our list for some time, and I really appreciate. And we'll probably have another workshop about this anyway, so going into the future. But thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Chair Gardner. We'll go to Councillor Vucic.
No real comment.
Councillor.
Yeah, except to say to the community boards, you do really well in prioritising it for the small budget and trying to look through your communities, and I think you've done an excellent job. Thank you.
Definitely agree there. Councillor Foy, then Deputy Mayor Stratford.
Thank you, Mayor Moko. And just on this topic, I just wanted to support Chair Gardner's comments about Elizabeth Stacey and all who work in this space. What's really been a huge change in footpaths is doing our footpaths in a 3-year forward planning cycle. So at the start of the 3 years, we name all the footpaths so that they're delivered within that 3-year timeframe. And that's been really great because it's increased our delivery hugely by doing that in advance. What I'd raised earlier about the renewals for Kirikiri is actually the same point I'd like to raise about this. And Chair Gardner and Chair Ward did raise about the renewals as well. When I did query about the renewals for footpaths and wanting to know them 3 years in advance, I was told by staff that it's an operational matter and we don't get to decide on renewals. And while I appreciate that, what I'm actually asking is not for us to decide. What I'm asking is for the operations of the NTA to let our community boards know in advance with the 3-year program so that we can pool our resources, so that gives weighting to the community board to decide actually if we're doing a renewal on a footpath here, we could put our money towards that for the next 3 years and increase the level of service for that footpath. Instead of it being a standard renewal, we could increase it to a 2.5 metre shared path. But without knowing that from the start in advance for the 3-year program, we are making decisions in isolation. So can I please table that with Kushla as our asset manager and with Calvin and Elizabeth Stacey as well? If we can please change the way that that information is presented to our community boards so that we can have a better holistic result for forward planning and pooling of resources for the outcomes for our footpaths. Thank you.
I think through the chair, when the initial request was received a couple of years back, it was about a request to be able to influence or change the renewals program, and that was response provided at the time. Since then, things have evolved, and we have undertaken that we will provide the planned renewals program for the next 3-year cycle. I would like to point out, however, that under the Whakatāhi subsidy funding rules, there are some tight rules around the scope of where you can upgrade a footpath under the renewals category.
So we didn't get any funding from them anyway.
In some cases you can for renewals, but it needs to be certain length, certain justification and in sync with the rest. So it's not just a case of deciding we want to widen this and automatically it's funded under renewals. So we just need to work through those processes. But again, that is where it is good to have those early engagement conversations with community boards to see where the situations are where we might want to pursue those opportunities.
Yeah, if we can get that tabled for the proposed 24-27 to all our community boards to have a list of upcoming renewals, there could be some reprioritization of the next list as well. Through the chair, just again going back, we're not likely to have that till the budget's confirmed in October. And then as part of it, we have
LTP in September,
but we have those now.
We have the list of likely projects.
Oh yeah, even that, it was better than nothing. Yeah. You know what, I learned something randomly last night. American English versus British English. And in American English, to table something means you don't want to talk about it anymore. Whereas in British English, it means you want to put it up to discuss. So let's table the second table, the rest of this paper. Oh, sorry, did you be strict? Sorry, I already took your name, but you didn't speak.
So the footpaths on the state highway, are they funded by us as well? Or are they fully funded by Waka Kotahi?
Through the chair. It depends
On the speed limit?
on the speed limit, on the service level agreement that's in place, and on whether the footpath is deemed to be an increased level of service requested by council or a standard.
So I'm talking about brand new, so State Highway 11 Harudu, I think that's in a 60k zone, so we're paying our share of that, and State Highway 10 Waikapa will be paying our share of that.
So,
Or is that a Waka Kotahi one?
I think they're both council projects, aren't they?
State Highway 10 Waipapa, I'm not familiar with. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I am. So yes, we are, and that is within, I think, the 70k zone for the most part. And a short piece of it in the 100k zone to put in.
So is that funded by Waka Kotahi fully? No, it's we
Funded
have
by
a share.
community board, that's right.
Okay, cool. And secondly, in the discussion and next steps, and I know that this has happened at each LTP last time, there was no share provided by Waka Kotahi, but in the event that subsidy is approved, should there be guarantee that council are going to support the consideration of additional projects, or should we be allocating what we've planned as a full share should Waka Kotahi subsidy not come? Should that come back to the table and we reallocate it to other roading projects? Because it is our share, it's council's share.
So just to confirm that I'm getting your question right,
It's on page 106, the last two sentences of discussion and next steps. So it says in the event additional funding is secured, subsidy approved, each board will have the opportunity to consider the selection of additional projects.
yes, so I think firstly that the move to the totals identified in the 24-27 program exceed what the community board requested funding is, should it not be subsidised. Any decision once subsidy is confirmed or not ultimately sits with council in terms of what to do with if there's local share required to uptake subsidy. I think just to clarify, I believe it was the 18-21 cycle was actually the first time subsidy was included for footpaths. So prior to that, there was no subsidy, and then obviously we missed out last time. Based on the current GPS, we are not that confident that we will receive subsidy this time.
That might not be an issue. Yeah, okay. And I don't, normally I'd be the 18 to 21 period where, yes, let's, build all the footpaths we can, but we're in a recession heading into a depression and we need to cut back on
So
stuff.
just talking about that September, October dates that you commented were different. So the NLTP comes out in September. As per last 3 year cycle, staff need to then assess what was approved in the LTP, what was approved in the NLTP, match up the local share where they match 1 for 1, and then identify the areas where either local share has been provided and no subsidy, or subsidy has been provided with no local share, and footpaths will be likely to be one case of that, and that's where it comes to council for direction on where those budgets are to be allocated.
And can I just ask that that it's not a rushed process? Last time it was really rushed, and there was all this very technical information, and so it needs to be workshopped, please. Put in the request early.
I think, yeah, we'll work with governance and getting a request in probably now because we know the dates. We just need to, we are dependent on no further slippage of the NLTP.
Just want to take the opportunity to note that in the light of the grey area around the subsidies moving forward, that council really focuses on taking or ensuring footpath development and development agreements, because we have a lot of developments going on at the moment. And I have had an RFS around King Street and Kitty Kitty, and I'm really happy that that the footpath in that area has been captured in the development agreement. However, from the community board perspective, it would be really good to have had some, even though it's probably confidential, to have had some input into that, because it's just a piecemeal, but we need to know that we can link that. So again, it comes down to our spatial planning and strategic planning in that CBD area. So if council can just have a focus on development agreements till we get financial contributions and development contributions back in, that would be really beneficial to us at community board.
Thank you for that. We'll put that to a vote. All in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions? Motion is carried. Now, this is giving me flashbacks to the last training where we would receive all these reports, and there was actually a really good discussion around the table, but our meetings always remain. We'll go to item 6.4 on page 107. This is to retrospectively receive our submission to the GPS, which someone else can move it for them. Thank you, Councillor Research, and the seconder. Yep. Thank you, Councillor McNally. Councillor Research.
Well, just for the sake of time, I won't really make comments with respect to it. I'll leave it with the.
Councillor McNally.
While it is retrospective, we've now got an addition to the process in receiving the statewide improvement project back, proposals back, which feeds into that our LTP and up and change the GPS. And I just noticed in that there's a couple of things there. Basically, the sections of the Statewide 1, Whangarei to Wellsford, Central, Northern and Southern focus for the next 3 years on safety, and the alternative to the Brendurans move out to the design and construction are probably out in the 30 to 34 year. And I just wonder, given this report, New Zealand Institute of Economic, there's some really strong numbers in there that suggest if we decide to have a special consultative process and go back to the GPS, that we use this report to support our argument to bring the projects forward, particularly under Ryan's Roads of National Significance. And it talks about, just I spoke about it earlier, government set an ambitious target to double exports in the next 10 years. Investing in high quality four-lane express rail on the entirety state one, Auckland to Northland, could boost national GDP by 1.2 billion, and locally increase regional by 50%, increase in their current growth rates, increase regional GDP by 2.1 by 2048. And just it's massive. It's a huge increase in our economic performance in Northland will be benefited by. So I just wondered what this group thought of me taking it to the next regional transport committee and suggesting we need to go through a special consultative process. Go back, which means we have to go back out to the public and say, let's take it to the minister. I've got to work out exactly how that works, but those are my thoughts.
Would you like that as a resolution, Councillor McNally? So you've got the backing of this? Because I'm happy to give that to you, but maybe we'll do it formally by way of if Councillor Research and yourself are in agreement, we add a C to this so that
do we have, can this committee make that?
I recommend through council that.
I'm just not sure where RTC's next Tuesday, I think.
So your next council meeting is on the 9th of May. So if I can see it before then, does it need to be?
The next formal ICC is until June. That is a deliberation.
How's it?
If appropriate, we can make submissions to the regional managed transport plan, we can plot strategies. We can receive and consider any placemaking projects that have a transport related components. The committees can ensure that projects are captured where appropriate in our funding and planning instruments. Yeah, I feel like we do, we from this committee can give you that within our responsibilities.
I'm not sure timing, that's all, was when we were expecting if we were to do that, the timing, so we can get it into and have an impact on not only our LTP, but also regional transport plans. So we might have to do it via a letter or something to,
LTP.
well, it won't really, but it's regional, so it's regional transport.
Yeah.
And it talks about not only roading, but also the allowing to port. So it's quite significant for Northlands.
I don't think we need to, like, it's in your court because you're on the RTC and the regional council will have to go through consultation through their significance process, but not us. Sorry.
So I'll get on with that then.
Yeah.
Right.
All right then, all those in favour say aye. Those opposed to abstentions, that is carried. I will, so this is our last official committee meeting as the Te Koukou Transport Committee. And our next one, we will cycle in as the Te Koukou Transport and Infrastructure Committee. So we can add in there, we'll have to make these a day thing, I think, hey, stuff today's meeting. I'll,
On that note, are we thanking Calvin for being in the hot seat?
yes, thank you, Calvin.
Cool.
Thank you for your
Thanks,
dedication.
how many meetings have you?
So this is your last day in the hot seat then? And
I was never supposed. Well, last time.
Oh, that's nice up there.
No, Tanya, she was going to be taking care of today, but she's on leave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin.
And again, appreciate having all of our stuff today. I really appreciate you being able to inform our meeting, and it has made it flow a lot better than when you're not actually in the room with something.
Yes, answers in the room.
I'll close us off with karakia. Thank the public I saw that kreiti me te aroho te atua, e te whiwhinga taitanga ki te wairua tapua ki a ki amen.
Thank you. Yes, I did.
Symposium is that's not our
I'll make they're running around.
We don't have a workshop today.
No workshop today.
So I've got one coming anyway.
Okay, oh, well, it's school holidays, so better keep up.